COBT viewers and listeners. It's Maynard and Mike here with a special 4th of July edition. So first of all, let me wish you, wherever you are, a happy 4th of July. We hope you're celebrating with friends and family. Mike and I and the whole team at Veriton, we love these holidays, whether it's Thanksgiving or the 4th or anything else where we can do something a little bit different, a little bit special, take a moment and think about the bigger picture. And so for this year's 4th of July, we're really lucky. Right here in Houston, the Lone Star Flight Museum is just south of town, down at the Ellington Airport. And if you haven't been out here, it's a phenomenal place. If you're watching rather than just listening, you can see behind me there's a B-25. We'll talk a little bit more about the museum, the planes, the mission of the organization. But we're super lucky to have Jerry Scott with us. Jerry's the chief operating officer out here. He's head of flight operations. He's a longtime volunteer. And in his introduction, we learned that, now the team was kind of being funny, Jerry, but they said he was born in a hangar and he's got jet fuel in his veins.
I've been accused of that.
So he's got real passion and real knowledge for everything that's happening here. And on a day where we're celebrating American history and independence, we couldn't think of a better place to come and see the weapons and the planes that did so many great things for us in our past. So.
Well, thank you. We're pleased to have you here today.
It's fun. The fact that you guys are thanking us is funny because we're like kids. We're having so much fun.
Well, we love to have visitors here, and just for the purpose that you mentioned. And the Lone Star Flight Museum is a place that is STEM-based education program, and I think of it as a place where aviation, education, and history all intersect. And so we get to tell the stories of these amazing aircraft and the people who maintained them, flew them, built them, and put all that together just to provide the freedom that we're enjoying.
Well, just this plane here, when you read the plaque about, I'll mess it up, but in my quick read of it, it was like, okay, this thing was stateside during the war, but then the CIA might have used it in the Bay of Pigs. And then you guys, when you redid it, you painted it like one of the Doolittle planes, which is maybe one of the greatest attacks or raids in American history.
You're correct on all that. I can't confirm that second part, but
yeah, it's
because they won't confirm it.
It's yeah, that's kind of stuff you can't confirm.
And most aircraft that we have in the United States did not leave, and they stayed stateside as trainers because, quite frankly, they were battle damaged, destroyed or brought back and considered war weary and then crushed. So a lot of the aircraft that we have, with a few exceptions every once in a while, but you're correct on this. This is actually the only B-25 that's approved to carry the Doolittle logo by the Doolittle Association. And so we're honored to be able to represent them with that. And that story in itself, we want to make sure is a part of history, and that kids know that and what happened and why that happened and how that happened. And so we actually have a fuse box cover over in the model of the CV-8 Hornet, which is on the side of this airplane, that 7 of the 80 Doolittle Raiders actually signed. And the last one passed away about 4 or 5 years ago at the young age of 103 years old. He was Jimmy Doolittle's co-pilot. And we were honored to participate in his memorial service. Lived over in the San Antonio area.
That is fantastic. Well,
his name was Dick Cole, by the way. I just want to mention that.
That is awesome. Well, you guys were so kind to have us, because when a bunch of energy guys call and say, hey, can we come do a podcast video, at your shop? You guys couldn't have been nicer. And you were remarking in your career, the way things are interconnected is always fascinating. One of the things we're always talking about is how energy is connected to so many things, the markets, the world. Mike, we're at the half-year point of 2025. Jerry, indulge us for a minute. As we get started and talk about the world, what would you say, Mike, 3 highlights from the first half of the year?
Well, Maynard, we coined the phrase Trumpitility, right? I mean, I think it pretty much explains most of this year so far. And it's kind of died down a little bit, but obviously the Trumpitility started off with just the tariff issue, right? I mean, we had the S&P 500 basically plunge on April 3rd or 4th, I guess it was, and we've come all the way back. Now we're at all-time highs on the S&P 500. So that was one of the first things. Right now we're dealing with this big, beautiful budget bill is the next thing that we're dealing with. We'll see what happens over the next, week, 2 weeks, and see if that passes. My guess, if it does pass without any issues, the market probably moves a little bit higher, right? But a lot of the momentum is already in the market, so I wouldn't expect it to race materially higher. And I think the third thing is what we saw over the last, 10, 12 days with this Iranian war with Israel, right? The U.S. bombing their facilities. Maybe we're on a potential of peace in that region. But what it has done is crude oil prices have been all over the place. We went from low 60s to high 70s, and now we're back at $65. And I think we're probably about where we need to be. And one thing I would say is July 6th will be a very important OPEC meeting. They'll be meeting to talk about the next set of increases. Most people think they're going to raise production by another 400,000 barrels a day. And I would say if they do that, that will be a total of 1.6 million barrels a day of production increases. If I would have told you that at the beginning of the year, that's almost 2 times the basically global demand that was expected for 2025, that prices would still be in the low 60s, mid 60s, you'd have thought I was crazy. So clearly the market is concerned or worried about, is that spare capacity really there? Are those barrels going to be put on the market? Of, assuming that 1.2 million barrels have already been agreed upon, only a couple 100,000 barrels are really on the market. And so that's why prices are holding in steady. So I think what we're going to see is July 6th, we'll hear what happens there. We'll see where oil prices go. But I think the big theme of the year is going to be for the oil markets is that spare capacity? Is it there? If it's not there, then you're probably going to see the back end of the market probably hold up pretty well and probably actually go up from here. So that's what we're looking at. It's been a really interesting year so far. We hope the Trump utility dies in the second half of the year, but that's about it.
It's kind of funny. Trump utility, usually that was a negative thing, but there can be positive surprises with volatility. You never know. It makes me think we should probably spend a little more time around the Mideast in the back half of the year. We'll see.
Amen.
Jerry, I was thinking as Mike mentioned the Iranian mission, flying whatever, I think the number is like 36 hours straight. That's slightly reminiscent technologically and bravery-wise of the Doolittle raid, where you did this audacious, who thought you could strike something from that distance? I don't know, that's kind of a way to tie recent history with World War II history.
I would agree. And the amount of detail and planning that's required is incredible for that. And with the Doolittles, they had to launch early because they were detected. And that made an impact that they were actually then short on fuel. They didn't have the capability of in-flight refueling. So they weren't able to get to their ultimate destination, to drop the bombs and get to the ultimate destination. So knowing that, they still went. And to me, it speaks to the bravery and the heroism that those, and they were all men in that group that performed. It's just absolutely incredible.
So that raid, I know a little bit of the history. I mean, first of all, to fly a bomber like this off of an aircraft carrier, you wouldn't normally have had the length, right? So you had to turn into the wind and have some good wind to be able to get one of these things launched from an aircraft carrier. And then these guys knew we don't have enough fuel to get back. So we're going to have to land on the other side of Japan somewhere.
And the plan was to go into China and to other places and then be able to refuel and to get out. But that got scrubbed because they were so far. They looked for every advantage they could get. The wind was one. The ship going as fast as it could into the wind. So they would turn and get every knot they could get of wind. But they also would run their engines up to where you thought they were going to come apart. And then they would have a flagman stand there and would release them. And they had to hold their brakes until then. And he waited until the ship was pointed down because the seas were swelling so much. And so when the ship was pointed down, they would release it. So by the time they got to the end, it was pointed up.
And did they successfully launch all of those planes?
All of them. There was a doubt on one because he forgot to put his flaps down, one notch, which is typical for takeoff. And so it kind of drifted down a little bit.
Well, probably 19 or something. No,
they were all very young.
When you think about kids today, we always, college kids, like, oh, I can't believe you forgot to do this or that. Like, your flaps, these are young kids.
And so they managed, just it drifted down a little bit and then get up and then continue on. And they skimmed the waters. They went so they wouldn't be as visible. Obviously, radar and other technological advances were not available at that time, but it was not so much that it was a military damage as much as it was in psychological damage that the Japanese have felt, we can't be hit here, we're impervious. And
this
so
was
that made a difference.
This was early 42?
In April.
So pretty soon after Pearl Harbor.
That's correct.
Morale is bad in the U.S. and we need to make a statement.
Exactly right. And so it was a boost, not only for all Americans that, wow, look what we did. And for the Japanese, it forced them to pull their forces back and protect the homeland more, which left more front areas exposed to that. So the logo itself, you'll see, is a round circle with 3 symbols in there. 3 of the 4 came from the same unit, same wing, if you will, and then the other one from another one. And they were all volunteers, did not know what they were volunteering for when they signed up.
So I mentioned in your lead-in, Jerry, this the team here is talking about fuel in your blood and born in a hangar and all that, but where did you get your own personal passion for all this? Like, tell us a little bit about your career and then how you got here.
Ever since I was a very, very small little boy, I've always loved airplanes and anything having to do with that. Obviously, I don't remember, but I'm told my first flight was at 2 weeks old, traveling with my family.
Not to date you, Jerry, but when would that have been? What kind of plane are we talking about here?
It was probably a DC-6.
Okay.
So a very long time ago.
Yeah, not a DC-3. You're a little younger than that.
No, they were still flying those, but it was on American Airlines, and which flew also DC-3s. But I've traveled all my life that way, and I've always enjoyed it. And later, after graduating college, and actually worked in the oil industry for a period of time, and I really it wasn't satisfying to me what I was doing. So I sat down and said, what do you want to do? And I made a list, and then I targeted, go after those companies and pick the leader. And it just took me 10 months to convince them they couldn't succeed without me. So
that's not bad.
So, and I've been, that was a long time ago in 83, I guess, right after college. And then I've enjoyed it ever since.
But then you started volunteering here, and I know there's a lot of volunteers that make this place run, but maybe talk about the volunteer crew. And
absolutely, and the volunteers are our lifeblood. And I started in 2009 as a volunteer when we were in Galveston and cleaning airplanes. I was looking for something for my son and I to do on weekends. And so the first 2 weekends, he and I spent in a very hot hangar cleaning this B-25 behind us here. And it had a lot of oil on it, and we had a blast. We were soaked from head to foot in sweat, and we had a fantastic time. He grew up, went off to college, lives in Dallas, and I'm still here.
It's so fun. So the organization here, you celebrate the machinery and the bravery and the people and the veterans. And so that's why we were so drawn to it on the 4th of July. But maybe just introduce us a little bit to the people side of the equation and what you're doing here around veterans in particular.
Well, it's important that we show to kids that come through.
And there's little kids,
everywhere.
They're all over the place. It's so cool.
And that noise level we love to hear that excitement.
That's why we should turn up the volume right now on the little kids. It's so great.
Because these represent the history of that. And these aircraft are phenomenal and just fantastic. But without the people, it's just a piece of equipment, a piece of machinery. And the things that were done with these, from building it. We had a few years ago, we had a lady come through that had actually built a part of this B-25.
Like a Rosie the Riveter kind of lady.
Exactly, that's what she was. And she told the stories of building it, but she'd never seen one fly. So we took her on a flight in this. And after landing, Rand got a marker and had her sign the Bombay in there.
Oh, wow.
And date it. And so we want to celebrate those kind of people and those veterans and honor them as to what they had done and pass that along to all these kids. You know, that this is what happened to give you that freedom. And that it just didn't happen automatically. And there was a high price paid. And so we've got a lot of veterans in our volunteer group. And those are important to us. We want to celebrate those and honor those. We also have events during the year to celebrate them. Memorial Day is a big one for us, where this year we had over a dozen aircraft, Vietnam-era aircraft, on the ramp to celebrate Vietnam veterans. And we want to pay honor to those folks. And it's that sacrifice that they did
That's awesome.
is so important to us.
Jerry, first of all, thank you for taking me on the tour. A little mini tour today was really educational. You know, the thing I learned really is that these planes are not just sitting here as models. They're flyable. You take them out.
Correct.
Constantly take them out, and you have a core of pilots that actually take them out. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Our group of pilots are all volunteers, and they're amazing individuals. We have military pilots. We have pilots that fly for corporate flight departments. We have pilots that fly for airlines. They just don't show up and say, I want to fly the B-25. There's a progression that they go through, even though they may be very experienced. We've got pilots that flew.
I assume flying one of these is totally different than flying a corporate jet or something like that.
It is. It's not so much pushing buttons and monitoring a system. It's actually flying the aircraft. And so they start off, even though they may have flown, one pilot flew an F-15, another one that was a Navy exchange pilot, F-18, flew A-10s, F-117, just a whole variety across the board. But they start off in the T-41, which is over my right shoulder here, which is a Cessna 172 on steroids, I think of it. It's a bigger engine, and it's a tremendous trainer aircraft. And then they'll go to the Stearman, which we have back here, the PT-17 built by Boeing. And that takes a lot of stick and rudder skill. And that's why in World War II, they used it to learn those skills. Next to it is the PT-19 built by Fairchild. The military ordered quite a few of them, but then de-emphasized it because it was too easy to fly. And they weren't learning the stick and rudder skills. But our pilots would go through that progression from the T-41 to the Stearman to the T-6 here, which can be a handful to fly, but a tremendous airplane. And it flew yesterday, in fact. So it's a lot of fun and one of our favorites. Solid airplane. It's actually painted in the colors from right here at Ellington Unit.
So I guess you had a choice philosophically. You could have a museum where you just have the planes, or then you could have a museum where the planes are operational. You fly them. That's like we're in the strategy business. So what was the philosophy there? Because it would be easier to just have them in a building and not fly them. That's a whole level of complexity.
Well, it's a living museum, and our focus is on Texas aviation, and which is very broad and very historic. So these aircraft have a Texas connection. You know, we have a plane also in the corner over there as the TBM Avenger, which is painted just as George H.W. Bush flew it in World War II. Wow. So our purpose is to educate those kids and adults as they come through as to the contributions that were made. And as the kids go through, they're learning STEM facts. They're learning things about these aircraft, how they fly. Not just that's a cool airplane. It's blue or yellow or green or whatever, but more than that about it. So they learn, and our hope is to inspire those young boys and girls for a career in aviation. We need not just pilots. We need maintainers. We need designers. We need air traffic controllers. We need on and on and on and on. And so we try and show them that it's not just about being a pilot. That's fun and that's great, but it's a lot broader than that.
You mentioned a little bit of the history of of it previously being in Galveston, now it's here. Like, maybe talk about this location and how well it works for what you do.
Certainly. The museum was actually founded by a guy named Robert Waltrip, a local Houston businessman, very, very successful. The B-25 was his first aircraft.
Oh,
and
wow.
he used it as a corporate aircraft as well for trips. And he wanted to showcase.
That's pretty wild to have a B-25 as your corporate aircraft.
It is. He wanted to be able to show those and share the rich aviation history. And so he started acquiring other aircraft. They started at Hobby and then moved to Galveston. We were in Galveston for a number of decades. When in 2008, when Hurricane Ike came through, all airworthy aircraft were flown out to safety.
Okay.
But we had 8 feet of water that came into the hangar through the tidal surge. And at that time, our board of directors said, we got to do something different. And so the decision was made to make a move. Ellington was selected. It's closer into Houston. It's a great facility, great airport, very rich in history itself. 1917 when it started, a lot of runway, tower, just a great environment. So between that time and when we moved here in 2017, the design of the building, the fundraising, and the planning for that, and we moved in. So we left Galveston as a result of what Ike did. And our opening weekend here, Harvey showed up.
Oh,
and
wow.
this place stood up like a fortress and really, really did well. And since then, we've endured a few hurricanes, but it's done very well.
So how many people would you say the museum is touching? I mean, you're right here in Houston, but also you said some visitors will fly in, so it's serving the whole country. Like, what's your numbers or influence?
We have over 100,000 people a year come through the museum. And when and my favorite thing is to be down on the floor engaging folks and being around the aircraft. And it's amazing to me to talk to some of those people and engage them. We have people from Europe, we have people from Asia, all over that will come through and see. Behind Mike over here is an L-19 in Laotian colors, Vietnam era aircraft that was used. And had a gentleman a few months ago that came in that his father had crewed on the L-19s in Vietnam, and he was Laotian. And it was really touched him, it was significant to him.
This like that kind of example, you must get, I know some people like me, you're just curious and you love history and the respect all the veterans and stuff, but then you get these people who were actually personally connected.
Yes.
And the stories must be incredible.
They are, and those are my favorite moments that we have with people that actually did that. And I'll share a story with you that happened in Galveston. We were doing a flight on one of our aircraft, and this older gentleman and his son were there. And part of the brief in advance is the safety, to go through all that, as well as here's some history. And this gentleman had a walker, and after we went through the safety brief, I said to his son, "Can I talk to you a moment?" I pulled him aside, said, "I'm concerned about your dad." He said, "No, that's just there for stability. He's very maneuverable, can get around well." Said,
because these guys were going to go on a plane?
They were going to go on a flight.
Wow.
So I said, okay, we took the walker, and where did he go? He was up in the airplane. And his son had said, "What if he stays in the seat the whole time, does not move around?" Okay. So, part of the crew chief, which is the function I was performing, is manage the people as well and make sure nobody's doing anything that they shouldn't be doing. And as I look back as we're taxiing out, his son was sitting behind his dad and patting him on the shoulder with big tears coming down his face. And I said, well, there's more to this story. The older gentleman sat stoically, and it was at a radio set. And so his son moved around the airplane, took pictures. At the end of the flight, as we're going through our shutdown list, the son came up and said, "Can we get a picture with the crew?" Absolutely. So we finished up our duties and stood next to this gentleman by the side of the airplane. And his son said, "My dad was a crew member, shot down in World War II. Half his crew didn't survive. Today he was seated in the same position." So the sounds, the vibrations, the smells, They got the experience together. And for me, it was a very special moment to get to meet this guy and to enable them to be able to enjoy that together. So we get stories, we get people come through that will share things that of first hand that they did, and we love to hear those and see those and meet those people.
Phenomenal. So you're trying to maintain these planes and keep them running and do all this stuff, and then of course I see these stats all the time about, I want to say it was the B-25, but it could have been a number of these planes. Like the U.S. was turning out these planes so fast, Ford, big manufacturers, Boeing, et cetera. Do you get any help from those companies in terms of like parts or knowledge, or like what kind of support do you get from the aerospace community to keep these things going?
Some support financially, but none from the manufacturers, because so many of those have been absorbed by another company, by another company, by another company.
Yeah.
And the good thing is, though, to what you were just alluding to, during that time, one of the factors in our success was the ability to turn out so many aircraft and engines. And so there was an abundance, and there are a lot of commonality with the early, the DC-3s, the DC-4s, and 6s, and so forth, and 7s.
Oh, I see.
So some of those engines and pistons can be overhauled or redone. So fortunately, we're able to obtain those.
Like, do you go sometimes have to manufacture an old part somehow?
On rare occasion, but it is, if it's not available, then there are guidelines within the FAA that to be able to do that by certain people. And so fortunately as well, there's associations. There's one for the B-17 group, there's one for the B-25s, and others as well that are very cooperative and say, well, we did this, we tried that, and to be able to share, because these are important to keep flying and share those experiences.
You know, Jerry, on our little tour today, I mean, obviously we got a lot of history, World War II history, some Vietnam history, got some planes from there. I saw there's a Predator in there as well, a drone, that was really interesting. But the thing I want you to maybe talk about is the flight simulator for the shuttle. I mean, maybe talk about that. It is here. Maybe talk about the background, the history of that, and maybe the stripes that are on there, the history on that.
We're fortunate. We're very close to Johnson Space Center there at NASA, and so we get a lot of NASA people, astronauts, and even more than that, a lot of trainers, workers, others that come through. In one of our hangars, we have the CCT-2, Crew Compartment Trainer. They built 3. First one was built by Boeing, CCT-1. This one was built by another organization here locally. And then the CCT-FT, which was the full trainer, had the cargo bay. It's in Seattle. Purpose of the CCT, it is an exact replica of the nose of the shuttle in the cockpit and in the back. So it's used for training for the astronauts when the shuttle program was going. It actually was sat on a big stand. They could tilt it 90 degrees, so the astronauts could learn to get in and get strapped in their suits, because that's not easy in 1G to be able to do that. So it was referred to as a high fidelity trainer, and meaning that it was really about checklists and procedures and going through that. We periodically will have some engineers from NASA bring young engineers out and show them things. We had some last week to show them how they used to do it, how the door mechanism works, and all these things. And I tag along and listen, because I learned so much when they do that. The simulator, the flight simulator, we have every shuttle commander and pilot trained in this simulator, from STS-1 to the final STS-135, and it operated as a full motion. We don't operate as full motion, but people can see inside and listen actually to a tape of the final training mission. The simulator for a number of years was with Texas A&M, and then it came to Lone Star Flight Museum. So while it was at Texas A&M, they painted maroon stripes around it. So their
Shocking.
branding, shocking is. So we've left it that way, but it's we're pleased to be able to have these. These are artifacts. These are not replicas. These are not something that was built to kind of have fun with. These are the actual items that the astronauts use for training. And
so how many planes do you have total here?
it varies with sometimes with visiting aircraft, but anywhere 35 to 40 is very common. And we'll have a plane of the month, we refer to it, and we have a visit, which is a visiting aircraft coming in for the month of June. Actually, let's go back. Starting with March until through now, we've done Vietnam aircraft to honor those Vietnam veterans in the 50th anniversary of the fall of Saigon, the end there. So in March, we had a CH-46 helicopter that had been a Presidential One, a Marine One helicopter that's based here at Ellington. In May, let's see, that was March. April was a TA-4J jet. The Blue Angels had flown that type of jet, and it's amazing aircraft. In May, we had F-4 Phantom, and June we had the F-100, which is painted in Misty One colors, to honor those Misty pilots. And so for July, we have the T-33 Shooting Star built by Lockheed, and it's in the colors also from the unit here at Ellington.
So something like an F-4 or F-100, these jet planes, how much harder is it to maintain a jet versus a propeller plane, and how much harder is it to take one out for a spin? Like, just talk about that technology.
It's significantly more difficult and expensive. Not that these are not, but when it's a magnitude there with maintaining those. Those are the early jet engines, and they're far more complicated. And when you were able to look inside, you're like, oh my goodness, they had to monitor all these systems, where now very often a computer will monitor those and say, hey, look at me, look at me. Then they were watching all these dials and gauges. And it's a different kind of flying in that regard. So it's expensive to fly. They burn a lot of gas, jet fuel. And so they're not cheap to operate.
Can you, sorry to be now like dollars and cents guy, but how should you, how could a viewer or listener think about what it costs to renovate a plane or to house a plane? What are some of the rough scope? I know not every plane is the same, but
it depends on the condition with that, and the purchase of the airplane is really the down payment.
Yeah, it's just the beginning.
It's just the beginning.
It's like a boat for those of you boating today.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. 2
happiest days in a boat owner and airplane owner's life. Exactly right.
Yeah.
So it can be very expensive, but fortunately, and some of the jets referred to are owned by Collins Foundation. And so a sister organization here that we're very friendly with. So fortunately, they have that same focus to continue to be able to display that and show that and invest heavily in that.
Is this one reason why the volunteer force is so, right? Because if you had to pay people to come work on these, right, you couldn't do it.
And yes,
I'm guessing.
Well, in the volunteers, our maintenance is done for our aircraft is done by a professional group, 145 station here on the airport, and so by FAA regulations and so forth. However, our volunteer group will help and things like remove panels, things that are not safety oriented, to be able to do that. And so that helps on the labor cost with that. Yeah. So cleaning the airplanes, keeping the floors clean, doing a lot of other functions that they're vital to us.
So do you need more volunteers? Is that something anyone listening or
we
should
do
think about doing that?
We always do. And certainly we try and match their skill set with needs as to that. So absolutely. And we need more volunteers. And that's important to us.
And can you do that? Let's say you're just history lovers like me and Mike, and you don't really know much. Can you come out for a couple of hours and help, or do you have to, what would be how's the program work?
It's self-regulated in the sense of we have volunteers that are retired and will be here on Tuesdays and Thursdays and maybe some on Saturday and a few other days that have the time. Others that are still working and only can be here on a Saturday. So it depends on the individual. And for years, that's what I did was I came out on Saturdays and from cleaning airplanes to sweeping the floors to learning to marshal airplanes and a lot of things like that. And so it depends on the individual and their availability on that.
But they should reach out.
They absolutely reach out to us, and we have a volunteer coordinator, and we actually have a orientation class to go through and give them a broad picture of what all we do, and then try and find their fit as to how to help best.
Now, these programs you're doing, and like your team mentioned the gala, and maybe talk to us about some of that, because I think this gala that you have, I was joking with your team, I'm not a gala person, but this sounds like a great gala.
It's a fun evening, that's for sure.
And that's in November 14th, I think it was.
That's correct. And throughout the year, we'll have different events. We have one, and I believe it's October, we call it Hangar Bash. It's just a fun party, boots and jeans. And
when is that? That sounds fantastic.
October the 4th.
Hangar Bash. Mike, write that down.
So it's just a fun event in the hangar itself.
Can people host a private event here?
Absolutely. We do that all the time. And
Mike's birthday. Here we go.
And we have two large hangars. This is a 130,000 square foot facility. And in the other hangar than where we're sitting now, you'll see a big area in the middle. And that's where typically we have birthdays, corporate events, weddings, proms, you name it, all types of events that happen. And so that's in addition to our own events. We have concerts over there that on a regular basis. So a lot of things that happen. And it's important, though, that folks want to schedule something to contact us early, because they book up a lot throughout the year. So
it's stunning to think about having a birthday party next to a World War II plane.
It is, and we have scout events that will actually have sleepovers and sleep-ins in here, and they do scout merit badges, and there's a lot of kids-focused things in addition to that. So there's always something going on here throughout the year. The gala that you mentioned will honor individuals as well as an event this year. We're focusing, obviously, Vietnam and honoring one of our members of the board that actually was stationed here at Ellington, and tremendous individual, Ralph Thomas. But each year is something different with that, a different theme. It's fun to be in the middle of all the aircraft and the history with that. And so it's a unique venue in that regard, and a lot of fun, certainly.
I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here, but typically on a Veritan and sort of towards the end of our podcast, we always ask, what do things look like a decade from now? And if I'm sitting there a decade from now and walk into this hangar, what kind of planes do we have? What would you think is going to be here? What's going to be the big thing? Is it going to be stuff from the Iraq War? I mean, what kind of airplanes, what kind of aircraft are going to be here?
Well, I hope that we still have all these functioning flying, and that's certainly our goal. Being here at Ellington, and there's so much in the way of space here at Ellington and Houston, with just a number of space organizations. This is a spaceport, actually, and so there's a lot of future things that are going on, and so it's important to look forward, but we also don't want to forget on sacrifices of where we came. Where we're going, I think efficiency is a big thing, and speed and lift, all those things that are going. We've got companies here at Ellington that are working on rocket engines, and to be able to hit big Mach numbers, 6, 8, 9, 6, 7, 8, 9 kind of speeds, which is hard to imagine at this point. So
would you kind of explain for a second Ellington? Because I think people are like, okay, what is that? It's an old Air Force base, it's some hangars, but it's experimental. Like what exactly the complex here?
Ellington is a very interesting airport. Actually started in 1917. If you think about it, Orville and Wilbur, 1903, 14 years later, this airport was established to train World War I pilots. They flew Jennies, they flew a lot of very, very historic aircraft. Through the years, in about 1970, I believe it was, it became a joint use base. So still a military component here. We have NASA here, flight operations. We have the Texas Air Guard. We have the Texas Army Guard. We have Marines, the Navy, the Coast Guard. All those units represented here. Plus a lot of civilian aspect of it. It's a very friendly airport to operate from an air traffic control perspective. We've got our longest runway is 9,001 feet long, another one 8,000 feet. So a lot of runway, but there's a lot of space here, the future portion as well. The city of Houston has for quite some time really pursued that to bring those organizations in. There's plenty of space to do that, and there's a lot of assets here in terms of resources and people and the knowledge that goes with that to develop those things.
So all this, you mentioned, there's been an explosion in rocket technology. Wrong choice of words, but drones, all this kind of stuff, it's all happening out here?
It is, and it really makes it, my view, very interesting airport, and you never know what you're going to see. We see a lot of military aircraft going cross country that'll stop through here for fuel. You mentioned the UAVs. We have a MQ-1 hanging in the corner of the hangar here. Currently, the 147th here, Texas Air Guard, is flying MQ-9 Reaper. And they can fly those all around the world. It's not only in military conflict areas, but they fly them over fires, looking for hot spots, communicating with firefighters. Here's a hot spot you need to pay attention to. So there's many, many purposes, as well as communication. It acts as a relay, often. Photography, they can see a lot of things. So tremendous uses for that. And this is a training base for them for that, as well as operationally all around the world.
So Mike asked a 10-year question. I was thinking, I've got two as we wrap up. They're not easy. Neither one. So sorry to do this to you, Jerry. I got two hard ones. One is, with all this history, all this jet fuel in your veins, I need to ask you your favorite plane. And you got to explain why. So that's one. And then the second one is going to be, I assume you're going to be in the building right here. We're shooting this a little early. This is July 1st. This is coming out July 4th. You're going to walk around this building July 4th.
I will.
You got to tell us, what your feeling is going to be on that day.
And I appreciate that question. To the first question,
I know it's hard. You love all these planes.
It is. It's
maybe just your favorite as of today. You can change it later.
I'm really partial to the B-25 here because of the history that goes with that. Being the official aircraft of the Doolittle Association, about 2.5 years ago, we were invited to go to Palmdale for the rollout of the B-21 Raider, and they honored which honors the Doolittle Raiders, and we were there. A number of the family members. Trip of a lifetime, absolutely phenomenal. So this is a very, very special airplane for many reasons.
Do you know much about Jimmy Doolittle, the person?
Some, yes. I have.
It's like, what an amazing.
He was very intelligent. A lot of people may not realize that he was at very, very young age. He was able to achieve so many things. Now, he actually, after the war, went to work with Shell and helped develop the avgas that was used for so many years. He also helped develop what was referred to as blind flying. Now we would call instrument-rated flying.
Blind flying doesn't sound so good.
No, it doesn't. But just using instruments to navigate, and so which is now a skill that virtually all pilots will learn. So he was amazing with that, and very, very brave individual, and a tremendous leader. I think that's what a lot of those individuals back then were, just really, really amazing leaders.
Are there great books or movies about the Doolittle raid? It doesn't seem like such an incredible moment. It seems undercovered to me.
Well, there's been a few movies in recent years that I I would recommend for pure entertainment value, but not historic value.
Okay.
Was that tactful?
Yeah, no, that was
Okay,
good.
good. The one that, if you really want to learn more about the actual Doolittle raid, there was a movie that was written called 30 Seconds Over Tokyo.
Okay.
And has a lot of great footage, and it was actually written by Ted Lawson, one of the Doolittle raiders.
Oh, wow.
And so
30 seconds over
30
Tokyo.
seconds over Tokyo. And
So they hit, just to be clear, they hit Tokyo with those.
They did, and other locations as well. That's the most historic movie, I think, about the raid itself, and you learn the most. And they do a wonderful job of blending actual footage with Hollywood footage.
We're going to attach a link somehow to 30 Seconds Over Tokyo here, so maybe people, great 4th of July viewing.
Well, to your second question, whenever I fly in one of these aircraft or around or give a tour, I can't help but think of those veterans that sacrificed that. And it's not knowing, are they coming back or not, and yet willing to do that for the greater good. And when you get to meet those individuals, like the one I referenced that, with his son, it's such an honor to do that. And so, I think of those people and sitting in those seats, and what was it like? What was going through their mind possibly? And they after the war, they just wanted to get back to their lives.
Yeah.
And it was not about, look what I did. And so a lot of World War II veterans won't talk about their experiences. And I've even seen where we'll have a veteran come in and his family with him, and sometimes they'll stand behind, and as I'm engaging with the veteran, I'll see the family like, I've never heard that. And when I see that, to me, it's a signal of to ask more, because the family wants to hear more. And why is that? I think that it was painful. I think that they didn't want to share with their loved ones, their family, because they didn't want them to have that fear that you've been through this. But I think for a lot of the families, it's important to really understand what they went through, and how they sacrificed and how they came through that. And so all those days are very special, and these are just instruments that they used, and it's really about the people.
This hangar to me is just about American spirit. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You can kind of feel it when you're in here.
Absolutely. It's a special place, and one that we've got a lot of momentum going with a lot of projects, and one that I've been a volunteer a long time, and I guess I just wouldn't go away, so they put me on staff. So,
well, hey, you got to persevere.
That's right.
As we wrap up, do you think the country is still producing guys like Jimmy Doolittle?
I do. I think that it's kind of different, but there's still a lot of leaders, and it's just sometimes different. And there was only one Jimmy Doolittle like that. And
yeah.
Even though I actually have met a number of times his grandson as well, but there are, and they didn't. I think that the news cycle and a lot of information changes things today, and back then it was not like that. But they were just good, solid, hardworking people that felt like they had a job to do, and that's what they were doing.
This place reminds you, to Mike's comment, that there's just kind of something about the American environment. There's something about what we have as a nation that lets somehow people like Jimmy Doolittle grow up and come out of it. So
I think part of what we want to do here is inspire those kids. And you never know if there's a Jimmy Doolittle among them. Right. But without inspiring them and giving them those opportunities, and I said earlier, not everybody has to be a pilot, but we need leaders. We need air traffic controllers. We need all across the board, functions that help. it's important to foster that. And, you know, I think of it as, you know, once they get that aviation bug, there's no known cure for that.
You're evidence of that.
I'm evidence of that.
Well, I think this has been such a good flight. We should land this plane.
Well, we've
right
appreciated
now.
having you all here.
This was wonderful.
Welcome you here back, Lone Star Flight Museum at Ellington, anytime.
Yeah, for those of you watching and listening, come to the Lone Star Flight Museum, look up Jerry, call the team, get involved. It's awesome. And happy 4th of July.